My children treated me like their maid until the CEO they wanted to impress called me boss, and I watched their pride shatter as the man they adored bowed to me, the real power they never saw coming. Okay, so deep breaths. I don't even know where to start. This whole thing is just insane. I feel like I'm living in some bizarre telenovela, except it's my actual life, playing out in crisp, agonizing detail. I'm Daniela, and I live in Monterey with my 2 teenage children, Diego, 17, and Sofia, 15. Our house, nestled in the affluent Colonia del Valle, is a sprawling 2-story affair with terracotta tiles and wrought iron balconies, the kind featured in those glossy architectural magazines. From the outside looking in, I guess you could say we're a picture of a normal, successful family. We have the house, the cars, a sleek Mercedes SUV for me, a sporty little BMW for Diego when he finally gets his license, the clothes. Sophia's closet is bursting with designer labels, a constant source of both pride and anxiety for her. They have the latest gadgets, of course, iPhones, iPads, gaming consoles that cost more than my first car. Their dad, Ricardo, well, let's just say he's always made sure they've wanted for nothing materially. He's the picture of a successful international businessman, always impeccably dressed, his phone glued to his ear, perpetually jetting off to important meetings in New York, London, Hong Kong. These trips, shrouded in an air of vague importance, translate to me handling pretty much everything at home. Everything. It's funny, isn't it? The chasm between perception and reality. How easily things can look perfect from the outside, while inside, a slow, silent resentment simmers, threatening to boil over. Most mornings start the same. I'm up before the sun, the Monterey air still cool against my skin, making breakfast. The scent of frying tortillas and sizzling chorizo fills the kitchen as I prepare chilaquiles for Diego, a precise layering of chips, salsa, cheese, and crema. For Sofia, it's pancakes, light and fluffy, drizzled with maple syrup and sprinkled with fresh berries, because God forbid they eat the same thing. One morning, I dared to suggest they both have chilaquiles. Diego grumbled about needing proper fuel for football practice, and Sofia rolled her eyes dramatically, declaring she'd rather starve. I took a deep breath, the familiar tightness in my chest constricting my lungs, and silently started a new batch of pancake batter. Then it's the endless cycle of packing lunches, turkey sandwiches on whole wheat for Diego, quinoa salad with grilled chicken for Sofia, making sure their uniforms are ironed, crisp and wrinkle-free, reminding them about their homework, which I usually end up helping them with anyway, deciphering complex algebraic equations and editing poorly written history essays, and finally, shepherding them out the door for school. The relief I feel as they leave is palpable, a physical release of tension I hadn't even realized I was carrying. After they're gone, the house falls silent, except for the hum of the appliances, my constant companions. Then it's the usual, cleaning, laundry, mountains of it, constantly accumulating like a never-ending snowdrift, grocery shopping, errands, the whole 9 yards. The supermarket is a familiar battlefield, navigating overflowing carts and screaming children, searching for organic produce and gluten-free bread. I run errands for them too, picking up dry cleaning, dropping off forgotten textbooks, collecting Sofia's latest designer purchase. Evenings are a mirror image of mornings, filled with more cooking, elaborate dinners that are often picked at and complained about, more cleaning, helping with homework again, surprise, mediating sibling squabbles, and trying to get them to bed at a reasonable hour, a Herculean task that usually involves multiple threats and a hefty dose of bribery. It's exhausting, bone-tired exhausting, but it's life, right? That's what moms do. At least, that's what I tell myself. A mantra repeated so often it's lost all meaning. Ricardo calls every few days, his voice a disembodied presence filtering through the phone, asking how his angels are doing, wiring money with a casual disregard for its origin. He's the fun parent, the distant provider, the one who swoops in with extravagant gifts and empty promises. And me? I don't even know anymore, just the background noise, I guess. The invisible force that keeps the wheels turning. The maid, the cook, The chauffeur, the tutor, the therapist, the referee, everything but their actual mother. It's like they don't even see me. Not really. I've become part of the furniture, a fixture in their lives as unremarkable as the refrigerator or the washing machine. And that's the part that really hurts. A dull ache that settles deep in my chest, a constant reminder of my invisibility. It started subtly, this erasure of me. Small things at first. Forgotten please and thank yous replaced by grunts and demands. Mom, where's my jersey? Not, Mom, could you please help me find my jersey? Mom, I'm hungry. Not, Mom, could you make me something to eat? It's like the basic courtesies they'd been taught as children had simply evaporated, replaced by an entitled expectation that I would cater to their every whim. Then the demands escalated. Diego, in the middle of a particularly intense video game session, would bellow from his room, Mom, bring me a Coke. Not even bothering to pause his game, his fingers still furiously working the controller. Sophia, sprawled on her bed, scrolling through Instagram, would call out, Mom, my nails need doing, and can you bring me a smoothie? Mango with extra chia seeds. Extra chia seeds. God, like I'm some kind of personal smoothie artisan. I'd bite back the sarcastic retort that threatened to escape my lips, the familiar tightness in my chest constricting my breath, and silently comply. Because what else could I do? Start a fight? Lecture them about respect? It would be like talking to a brick wall, met with eye rolls and exasperated sighs. The mess. God, the mess. Their rooms looked like a bomb had exploded. Clothes strewn everywhere, dirty dishes piled high, textbooks and papers scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. I'd spend hours cleaning, organizing, restoring order to their chaotic spaces, only to have them revert back to their original state of disarray within 24 hours. It was a Sisyphean task, an endless cycle of cleaning and re-cleaning, a constant reminder of my invisible labor. I tried talking to them about it, appealing to their sense of responsibility. Guys, please, try to keep your rooms tidy. It's not that hard. Diego would shrug, muttering something about creative chaos, while Sophia would simply dismiss it with a wave of her hand, saying, Mom, it's my room, leave me alone. And then there were the comments, the little digs, the casual cruelties disguised as jokes. Mom, your outfit is so mom-ish, Sophia would say, wrinkling her nose at my perfectly respectable blouse and slacks. Mom, you're so clueless, Diego would scoff, rolling his eyes at my attempts to understand his latest video game obsession. They'd laugh, sharing a knowing glance, a silent acknowledgement of my apparent inadequacy. These moments, these small, seemingly insignificant interactions, chipped away at my self-worth, eroding my sense of identity. I was no longer Daniela, the intelligent, capable woman I knew myself to be. I was just mom, their servant. A nameless, faceless entity whose sole purpose was to cater to their needs. I felt like a ghost in my own home, flitting through the rooms, unseen, unheard, unappreciated. A shadow of my former self. And the worst part? I wasn't sure how to fix it, how to reclaim the space I'd unknowingly ceded, how to make them see me again. I was drowning in a sea of motherhood, and I didn't know how to swim. It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind that shimmers with heat and the promise of weekend freedom. A group of Diego and Sophia's friends were lounging around our pool, their laughter echoing through the air, punctuated by splashes and shrieks. I was in the kitchen, sweating over a mountain of food. Platters of tacos al pastor, bowls of guacamole and salsa, a giant pitcher of agua fresca. I'd spent hours preparing everything, carefully chopping vegetables, marinating meat, wanting to make a good impression, even though I knew I was, as usual, just the invisible hand providing the sustenance for their fun. As I carried the heavy trays outside, my arms aching, I could hear Sophia's voice, sharp and dismissive. Mom, hurry up! We're starving! I plastered a smile on my face, the familiar tightness in my chest constricting my breath, and set the food down on the table. Immediately they descend, ed upon it like a swarm of locusts, grabbing tacos, piling their plates high, barely acknowledging my presence. "Mom, these tacos are okay, I guess," Diego mumbled through a mouthful of food, not even bothering to look up from his phone. Sophia, ever the drama queen, dramatically plucked a cilantro leaf from her taco. "Ugh, Mom, you know I hate cilantro. Why do you always put cilantro on everything?" Her friends giggled, their eyes flitting between Sophia and me, a silent acknowledgement of her perceived superiority. The humiliation washed over me, a wave of heat rising to my cheeks. I felt like a servant, a caterer hired to provide their amusement, not their mother. Then came the final blow. One of Sophia's friends, a skinny girl with perfectly straightened hair and a designer handbag slung over her shoulder, pointed at me with a manicured finger. "Is that your maid?" she asked, her voice dripping with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. The laughter that followed was like a slap in the face. Sophia, instead of correcting her, simply shrugged, a smirk playing on her lips. "She's something like that," she said, her voice laced with a casual cruelty that made my stomach churn. I stood there, frozen, the weight of the trays in my arms suddenly unbearable. The laughter continued, echoing in my ears, a cruel soundtrack to my humiliation. The sun beat down on my back, the heat amplifying the burning shame that spread through my veins. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to tell them all exactly who I was and what I did for them, but the words caught in my throat, choked by the lump of anger and resentment that had taken root there. I set the trays down, the clatter of ceramic against glass momentarily silencing the laughter, and turned, walking back inside, the tears stinging my eyes, blurring my vision. I stumbled into the kitchen, the cool air a welcome reprieve from the oppressive heat outside, and leaned against the counter, my hands trembling. The tightness in my chest intensified, making it hard to breathe. I closed my eyes, willing the tears to stop, willing the burning shame to subside. But it wouldn't. It stayed there, a raw, open wound, a constant reminder of my invisibility. That was it. The final straw. Something inside me snapped. I was done. The quiet rage that had been simmering within me finally boiled over. I was done being their invisible servant, their personal chef, their human ATM. Done. I spent the rest of the afternoon locked in my room, the curtains drawn, the silence a stark contrast to the boisterous laughter that still drifted in from the pool. I didn't cry, not really. It was more of a dry, hollow ache, a deep-seated weariness that settled in my bones. Later that evening, the doorbell rang, shattering the fragile peace I'd managed to carve out for myself. Suddenly, a frantic knocking on my bedroom door. "Mom! Mom, hide! Hide!" It was Diego, his voice a panicked whisper. "Who is it?" I asked, my voice still thick with unshed tears. It's him," he hissed, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. Him being Mateo Garza, the young CEO of a rapidly growing tech company, some sort of entrepreneurial wonderkind that Diego and Sophia idolized. Apparently he was in Monterrey for a conference, and had decided to make a surprise visit. "Hide? Why should I hide?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Mom, you can't be seen like this," Sophia chimed in, her voice equally frantic. You're in your robe, and you smell like bleach. What will he think?" Bleach? Right. Because apparently, the faint scent of cleaning supplies was more offensive than their blatant disrespect. My robe, a soft, comfortable terry cloth thing I'd worn after spending hours scrubbing their bathroom tiles, was suddenly a symbol of my domestic servitude, something to be ashamed of, something to be hidden from the prying eyes of their precious idol. The absurdity of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. They were embarrassed by me, by their own mother. They were so caught up in impressing this stranger that they were willing to shove me aside, to pretend I didn't exist. A strange calm settled over me, replacing the anger and resentment. It was almost amusing. I could have told them right then and there. I could have revealed the truth. Mateo Garza, their entrepreneurial god, their object of worship, was my business partner. My company, the one they thought was their FA. Theirs, The source of their comfortable lifestyle was actually mine. I built it from the ground up, brick by painstaking brick, while they were busy playing video games and accumulating designer handbags. I could have shattered their carefully constructed illusion right then and there, but I didn't. Instead, I played along. "Fine," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "I'll hide." I retreated to the guest room, the irony not lost on me, and closed the door, leaving them to their charade. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the muffled sounds of their excited chatter, the forced laughter, the desperate attempts to impress. A plan began to take root, a slow, insidious seed of revenge planted in the fertile ground of my resentment. I would let them continue their performance. I would let them believe their own lies. And then, when the time was right, I would reveal the truth. I would show them who I really was, and I would watch their carefully constructed world crumble around them. The guest room, usually pristine and smelling faintly of lavender, felt like a prison. I could hear the muffled murmur of voices from the living room, punctuated by Diego's forced laughter and Sophia's high-pitched giggles. They were putting on a show, a carefully orchestrated performance for their idol, and I, their own mother, was relegated to the role of a shameful secret, hidden away like a pile of dirty laundry. The irony was thick enough to choke on. Every few minutes, one of them would knock softly on the door, whispering frantic instructions. "Mom, stay in there. He's just having a tour of the house." Or, "Mom, be quiet. He can almost hear you breathing." Breathing. Like I was some kind of wild animal they were trying to contain. Their concern wasn't for my comfort, my feelings, but for the preservation of their carefully crafted image. They were terrified that their perfect facade would crack, that their idol would see the messy, complicated reality behind the glossy surface. And in that reality, I, the woman who cooked their meals, cleaned their messes, and managed their lives, was apparently a source of shame. The minutes stretched into an hour, each tick of the clock amplifying my sense of isolation. The lavender scent of the room started to cloy, a sickly sweet reminder of my confinement. I paced the small space, the plush carpet muffling my footsteps, my thoughts a tangled mess of anger, resentment, and a strange, unsettling satisfaction. I was on the verge of throwing open the door, marching into the living room, and announcing, "Surprise! The maid you're so desperate to hide is actually the owner of this house, the CEO of the company you so admire, and the reason you have all the privileges you take for granted." The image flashed in my mind, vivid and satisfying, their shocked faces, their stammering apologies, the sudden shift in power dynamics. But I hesitated. Was this really the way I wanted to handle it? Was I stooping to their level, resorting to petty revenge? A wave of doubt washed over me, threatening to extinguish the flickering flame of my anger. They were my children, after all. Did I really want to humiliate them, even if they deserved it? The internal conflict raged within me, a battle between my need for recognition and my maternal instincts. I pictured their faces, the adoration they held for this Mateo Garza, the importance they placed on his opinion, and I wondered, was I being too harsh? Was I letting my own hurt overshadow their youthful naivete? Another knock on the door. "Mom, he's leaving soon. Just a little longer." Diego's voice was strained, laced with a mixture of relief and anxiety. He probably wanted me gone, out of sight, out of mind, so he could bask in the afterglow of his idol's visit without the uncomfortable reminder of my existence. The thought stung, a sharp, painful jab to my already bruised ego. I sat back down on the bed, the soft mattress offering little comfort. I closed my eyes, trying to find some semblance of peace amidst the turmoil. Maybe I should just let it go. Maybe I should just continue playing the role of the invisible mother, the silent servant, the background noise in their privileged lives. It would be easier, wouldn't it? Less messy, less confrontational. I could avoid the potential embarrassment, the awkward explanations, the inevitable fallout. I could maintain the fragile peace, the illusion of normalcy, but at what cost? At the cost of my own self-worth, my own identity? The thought was a bitter pill to swallow. I opened my eyes, the lavender scent of the room now suffocating. The silence oppressive. No, I couldn't do it. I couldn't continue to erase myself for their comfort, for their convenience. I deserved to be seen. I deserved to be recognized. I deserved to be respected. And if a little public embarrassment was the price they had to pay for that recognition, then so be it. The seed of revenge, dormant for a moment, sprouted anew, its roots digging deeper into the soil of my resentment. I would wait. I would let them stew in their own deception a little longer. And then, when the time was right, I would reveal the truth, and I would watch their carefully constructed world come crashing down. The silence in the guest room was deafening. I could hear the front door open, the polite murmur of goodbyes, and then footsteps, approaching. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. They were coming to release me from my lavender-scented prison, to let me out now that their precious idol was safely gone. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves, preparing myself for the inevitable awkwardness, the forced apologies that would undoubtedly follow. The doorknob turned, and the door swung open, but it wasn't Diego or Sofia standing there, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and guilt. It was him, Mateo Garza. He stood in the doorway, framed by the soft afternoon light. His expression, respectful? He gave me a slight bow, a gesture so unexpected, so out of place in this bizarre scenario, that it momentarily stole my breath. "Good afternoon, Daniela," he said, his voice calm and even. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person." Behind him, I could see Diego and Sofia, frozen in the hallway, their mouths agape, their eyes wide with disbelief. The carefully constructed facade they'd worked so hard to maintain had crumbled, shattered into a million pieces by a single, respectful bow. The silence hung heavy in the air, thick with unspoken questions and dawning realizations. My own surprise quickly morphed into a strange sense of satisfaction? Vindication? I wasn't sure. "Mateo," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "What a surprise!" I gestured vaguely towards the living room. "Please come in." He stepped inside, his gaze sweeping over the room, lingering for a moment on the framed photos on the bedside table, pictures of Diego and Sofia, beaming smiles plastered on their faces, oblivious to the storm that was about to erupt. "I apologize for the unconventional circumstances of our meeting," Mateo said, a hint of amusement flickering in his eyes. He glanced at Diego and Sofia, who were still standing in the doorway, their expressions a mixture of shock and confusion. "I believe your children were under the impression that I was unaware of your presence here." "Yes, well," I said, my voice laced with a touch of dry humor, "they were concerned about my attire." I gestured to my robe, the soft terry cloth suddenly feeling like a badge of honor. Apparently, the faint scent of bleach is not conducive to making a good impression on a CEO. The color drained from Sofia's face. Diego shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between me and Mateo, his usual bravado replaced by a nervous fidgeting. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the soft hum of the air conditioner. And then, the doubt crept in, a cold, insidious whisper in the back of my mind. Had I gone too far? Was this petty revenge worth the pain etched on their faces? They were my children, after all. Did I really want to shatter their world, even if it was built on a foundation of lies and entitlement? My gaze softened as I looked at them. They looked so small, so vulnerable. The carefully constructed image of the cool, confident teenagers had evaporated, replaced by a raw, exposed uncertainty. A pang of guilt shot through me, a sharp, painful reminder of my maternal instincts. Was I being cruel? Was I using Mateo as a pawn in my own personal vendetta? The questions swirled in my mind, a dizzying vortex of conflicting emotions. But then I remembered the years of invisibility, the casual disrespect, the constant erasure of my identity. I remembered the burning shame, the crushing weight of their indifference, and the doubt receded, replaced by a quiet resolve. They ni needed to see this, they needed to understand, they needed to learn, and maybe, just maybe, this painful lesson would be the catalyst for change, the spark that would ignite a newfound respect, a genuine appreciation for the woman who had silently, tirelessly held their world together. I took a deep breath, the Monterey air suddenly thick and heavy in my lungs. The silence in the room was suffocating, broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioner. Mateo, bless his heart, seemed to sense the tension, the unspoken words hanging in the air. He cleared his throat, his gaze shifting from my children's stunned faces to mine. "Daniela," he began, his voice low and steady, "perhaps we should—" I held up a hand, silencing him. "No, Mateo," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "I think it's time we had a little family discussion." My gaze settled on Diego and Sofia, who were still standing in the doorway, their expressions a mixture of shock, confusion, and a dawning horror. "Diego, Sofia," I said, my voice even, devoid of the usual maternal warmth, "I believe you have a misconception about the source of your comfortable lifestyle." I paused, letting the words hang in the air, letting them sink in. "You see," I continued, my voice gaining strength, "your father's important meetings and international business deals are, well, let's just say they're not quite what you think they are." I saw Diego's jaw clench. Sophia's eyes widen further. "The house, the cars, the clothes, the gadgets, all of it. It's not your father's, it's mine." I watched as the blood drained from their faces, their carefully constructed image of me, of their world, crumbling before their eyes. "My company," I continued, my voice now ringing with a newfound authority, "the one you thought was your father's, the one you brag about to your friends, it's mine. I built it, brick by brick, while you were busy playing video games and accumulating designer handbags." The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp like shards of glass. Diego finally found his voice, a choked whisper. "But Dad," I shook my head, a sad smile playing on my lips. "Your father," I said gently, "is a consultant. He advises me on certain aspects of the business. Let's just say he's not exactly the high-powered CEO you imagine him to be." The devastation on their faces was almost unbearable to watch. Sophia's eyes welled up with tears, not tears of sadness, but tears of, what, humiliation? Disappointment? Diego's face was a mask of disbelief, his usual bravado replaced by a stunned silence. The power dynamics in the room had shifted, the carefully constructed hierarchy overturned. They were no longer the privileged children of a successful businessman. They were just my children, dependent on me, the woman they had treated like a servant, a ghost in their own home. Mateo, bless his soul, remained silent, a respectful observer of this painful family drama. He simply stood there, his presence a silent testament to the truth of my words. The CEO they idolized, the man they so desperately wanted to impress, had just bowed to me. Their MAID, their something like that. The irony was almost too much to bear. I looked at them, my heart aching with a mixture of triumph and regret. Had I gone too far? Had I inflicted too much pain? I didn't know. All I knew was that I couldn't go back. I couldn't continue to erase myself for their comfort, for their convenience. I deserved to be seen. I deserved to be respected. And they needed to learn this lesson, no matter how painful it might be. So, Reddit, I ask you, AITA, was I wrong to let this play out? Was my revenge too cruel? Did I go too far? I needed them to see me, but at what cost? I don't know what to do anymore. I need an outside perspective. Tell me, am I the asshole?